Larry, Trump has now absolutely guaranteed himself a spot on Mount Rushmore. I mean, it's a done deal now. Okay. I was pretty sure that he was going to have to end all income taxes before he was going to be absolutely certain of this, but he has done something even better than that.
All right. All
He
right.
he
Hit me
is
with it.
okay. He has ended the regulations on low flow shower heads. This is this is this is bigger. I think it's bigger, Larry. I am a huge advocate of paying attention to the little pleasures in life. I wrote a whole series of blog posts years and years ago about the little pleasures in life. And in the bathroom, there's three. I'm gonna let people just think about it for a minute. Wait, is there three? No, just two. I'm sorry, just two.
Dude.
Two in the bathroom, and the other one is body-sized towels. If you're 5'10" like me, you want a 6-foot towel. It makes
And
all the difference.
they're not allowed to make it?
No, they do. No, you can buy them all day long. But people have these little 4-foot towels, and it just makes no sense because in a hotel, good hotels, quality hotels, they have these body-sized towels, So
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
another one. And then the other ones are a fantastic chair. Spend whatever you have to on a chair, an amazing mattress. Throw out 17 if you have to find the 18th one that's perfect for you, and then a great pillow. Those are just just obvious to me.
All right. So you think that Trump is going to be carved into Mount Rushmore because of low flow showers?
Unbelievable. It's like,
But he
why
hasn't done anything about towels or mattresses.
he hasn't done anything on those yet. Well, the low flow shower head was in my list of things like paper straws and other craziness that we've had to endure over the last 10 years. So,
Yeah.
all right, I guess we can talk about, Tesla or something. Well, you could think about a shower, you strip down to take a shower. Let's talk about a stripped down version of the Cybertruck, and also the potential for a stripped down version or the Mexican version of the Model Y. That is all the talk on X right now. It's created a lot of firestorms, people arguing both ways. So Cybertruck, now a stripped down version of the Cybertruck, is on the website for the Middle East. They got the cost down by 10 grand by doing all this stripping down. What did you think about this? You're a Cybertruck owner.
Yeah, and I looked at that the manual the for $700 you can buy a manual tonneau
Right.
cover that you can pull down, which is fine. I mean, I would have included it for the 60 not $60,000. It just seems like that would have been better. You can also buy for a couple of $100 an adapter to plug into your charge port so that you can have a 220 volt
Mhm.
outlet. Um, and so, and the single motor, and a really great range.
Yeah.
And by the way, you want that manual tonneau cover to get the really great range.
Yes. Yes.
So I think that's pretty good. I would have thought they would have sold a lot more Cybertrucks than they have sold.
Right.
I'm surprised that it hasn't taken off. I projected that it would take off. I was wrong. Um, Maybe this is something to help galvanize those sales. Certainly, I think they're going to do well in Saudi Arabia. I think they're going to sell many more Teslas than they're going to sell Lucids. PIF, pay attention.
Yes. Yes.
Um, and you know PIF is, right?
No, no, it's PIN.
PIF is the sovereign investment fund of
Oh,
Saudi Arabia
oh, yes,
that
yes.
is putting all this money into Lucid. That is, sorry, sinking all this money into Lucid.
Yes.
That, sorry, is throwing all this money away.
Yes. Okay. Yes. So
You know that Lucid sold less cars than Ferrari
fewer cars.
this year, last year?
Yeah. Unbelievable.
Less cars than Ferrari.
Right. Right.
Ferrari are handmade cars that sell for $500,000
And
and on up.
yes.
Lucid have one car one model that gets to $250,000, of which they've sold a handful.
Right.
And they sold less cars than Ferrari.
Yeah. It makes no sense to me. I can't figure it out. And how they,
And PIF
yeah.
just keeps shoveling
Yeah.
money into it, just
Yeah.
keeps shoveling money into it. You know, they could have bought Tesla for $420 a share, which, by the way, translates into something like how many they've had 2 and 3, 6, like $70 a share.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Taking it private. Anyway,
Yep.
so Saudi Arabia is now opening up to Tesla, and I think Tesla's going to do great in Saudi Arabia. Let's put it this way: there aren't a lot of woke folks in Saudi Arabia.
Not very well.
And so I think they're going to do great.
Yeah.
And I think the Cybertruck will do really well. And, I think it's going to be good. And I think that version of the truck will do very well in the United States.
Okay. All right. So it occurred to me as I was looking at it as a marketing guy, is that maybe what the whole problem is here, they've sold so many of those, beasts and so many of the I forget what they called it now, the version that you have, the
Well, it was Foundation and now
foundation
it's
model. Yes, the foundation model. They sold a lot of those. And then it came time to start reducing the price. And I suspect, could be completely wrong, that they just haven't been able to get the cost down low enough to offer, say, a $60,000 version. And that they're working on that. But in order to continue to keep the thing in the public eye, they're selling $70,000 and $80,000 cars now. And they're just not getting enough business. There's just not enough TAM in that end of the market. So now they're looking at Europe, they're looking at China, they're looking at Saudi Arabia, Australia, so maybe they'll try to keep going with this more expensive version. Do you think that could be a possibility?
Yeah, so right now it's an $80,000 to $90,000 version, right? 79,900 and 89,000. And they probably need to get it down another $10,000 to $20,000, and it's really tough. And it's a beautiful car, I have to say. I love driving it, and I love, I love doing the road trips in it, and the range for me is fine. But it's very expensive for the current market. I think they stay the course, and I think they'll do well with it.
All right. So now that's one way of getting the cost down is take out some stuff. And of course, the Model Y, there was a lot of conversation 6 months ago that maybe the Q car was just going to be a stripped down Model Y like they're doing in Mexico. I don't believe that's true, but now that's become another round of massive conversations on X, whether that would, kill the stock again. It probably cost $20, $30 in the stock, I'm guessing, although it wouldn't be worth that in terms of the value of the company.
I don't know why these conversations keep bubbling up when people really don't know. It's people with they have such conviction of their perspective that they have this, they state it with such, certainty, and they can't have any certainty. I mean, I don't know that there's any reasonable evidence that that's the case. I will say I certainly hope it's not the case.
Right.
I think the stock will sink if that's the case. I think they really do need a model at the lower end, and it would be really good to see it, particularly if it uses some of the technology that's going to be used in the cybercab.
Right.
Some of the body structure and so on and so forth. So I really hope that's the case. I'm not prepared to cede the ground to the, people who are of the opinion that it's going to be, one particular, this Model Y stripped down. So we'll see. We'll see.
Right, right. As I was kind of contemplating all the possibilities, one that popped into my head would be that if the Model Q turns out to be either a smaller Model Y or a hatchback, maybe there would be a market for a stripped down Model 3, a sedan. And that
I
is,
don't know what you'd strip down. I mean,
not
not
like
have cool seats and, not have fancy undercarriage and not have double pane glass. I mean, I don't know that's gonna buy you much.
yeah, well, if you even got it down 5 or 6 thousand, it would be another TAM, a different market, and it would be a sedan as opposed to a hatchback or a
It's a hatchback that's selling today. The sedans are not selling.
well, that's not what Brian White tells me.
I mean, you only have to look at the marketplace. Just look at the marketplace. I mean, how many sedans are sold? I'll ask Grok.
Okay, you're gonna ask Rock. I think you have some sedans, Honda Civic and what do you call it? Toyota Camry. Is that a sedan? I think so.
That's a sedan, but that's a much bigger sedan. Camry is a big car.
Okay.
Even the Civic is today the size of a Model 3.
Okay.
In fact, the Civic is larger than a Model 3.
Okay. All right.
Now, there are a lot of much smaller cars than the Civic,
Mhm.
a lot.
Mhm.
Many of them, or most of them, are, some form of, hatchback.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, versus, I don't know. Let me ask what
Okay.
Grok says.
All right.
So I don't know. We'll see. I made the wrong request.
Oh, you did. All right.
I asked about production sold.
Well, the key would be, let's say that it was even 100,000 cars a year. I mean, the Model 3, I think, and you could do it in all three factories. Well, two, they're only making it in two factories. You could potentially add it to Berlin. But the idea would be just to hit that TAM on a sedan, and also introduce just that many more cars, getting bought.
Yeah, so there the Camry sells 309,000 units now. It's the size of a Model 3.
Okay.
The Civic sells 242,000 units, and the Corolla sells 283,000 units, and the Nissan Sentra sells 150,000 units.
Yeah.
I mean, these are very small numbers.
Well,
These are,
but you add that up, that's 800, it sounded like 800, 900,000.
yeah, but you're not going to replace all 800.
No, just 25%. Anyway, I'm just throwing out an idea that if the Model
Look,
Q.
here's the reality.
Yes.
Here's the reality.
Okay, all right.
If all of this were possible,
Uh-huh.
Elon would have done it 4 years ago. 4 years ago, and I was thinking about this yesterday,
Okay.
Elon Musk made the decision that there was no future in trying to be a car company because autonomy would end car companies.
Right, right.
And having made that decision, he stood in opposition to his entire management team that wanted to do all the stuff you're talking about now,
Mhm.
and that was going to do that in our minds. I mean, 3 years ago, I did a projection, and I was projecting up to 30 million cars sold a year, blah, blah, blah.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I was working on all the different models they would use and all the factories that Elon said 3 years ago, or whatever it was, that's it. We're not going to be a car manufacturing company.
Right.
We are going to be an autonomous vehicle company. We're going to be a full service autonomous company.
Right.
And so For that, you don't need 15 models
Right,
or
right.
13 models or 5 models or 4 models, 6 models. You don't need to fill this niche with 100,000 cars, that niche with 200,000 cars, that niche with 400,000 cars. You don't need that.
All right. So,
And so he's not going to do it.
okay. So now, because I
Yeah.
brought that up to a couple of other co-hosts last week, and I said by 2028, Tesla won't be selling cars to consumers anymore.
I agree with that.
Oh, okay.
I agree with that.
Yeah,
I mean, Tesla will be providing cars for car fleets.
right.
And whether they own the fleet or XYZ owns the fleet or individuals own small fleets, I don't know. And I don't know how this model is going to evolve. But as far as Elon is concerned, his car ownership is, it's all over.
It's passe. Yeah. Okay.
Now, the Roadster will be made for car
Right,
owners.
right.
And the Cybertruck will be made for car owners.
Mhm.
But Y, 3, X, S, that's over. There's going to be a robovan, there's going to be a cybercab, and then maybe a larger scale, SUV scale. I don't know.
Right, right.
I really don't know.
Yeah.
The cost of running the robovan may be such that they can use that for 4 or 5,
Right,
passengers or
right,
whatever.
right.
So I really think all of this conversation, which is driven by nerves, they need to sell more cars. Blah. I think all of this conversation is moot.
Okay. Well, there you go. So I should have asked you first, and I wouldn't have had to ask anybody else.
No, I could be wrong.
No. I'm just.
I could be wrong. They could all be right.
Right. Yes.
Everybody else could be right, and I could be wrong. And hey, that's you can't read the mind. And Tesla are famous for keeping stiff lips.
Yeah. It's true. It's true. Okay. So let's switch to analysts are saying, I did a quick look. People are saying that Tesla analysts are saying 35 cents a share. Who else? That's the NASDAQ is saying 35 cents a share a week from Tuesday. And there's another group that's Wall Street, the Wall Street Journal, I think. Wall Street expectations 43 cents a share. Bradford said 35 to 50 cents a share. And I think AJ is at 37 cents a share, if I remember right. I asked him a little while ago. He didn't get back to me. So it looks like we're getting into a pretty narrow range of expectations. And I know you don't do this game anymore. I was just curious what you were thinking.
Whatever AJ said.
Whatever AJ says. Yeah.
Honestly, he's got a real feel for numbers. I trust his numbers, and it's probably in that range.
All right. Well, you said you trust his numbers, and you were telling me in the green room that you've actually taken action on one of those aspects, and I was kind of blown away because it's been a subject. Well, okay, go ahead. Tell us what.
Yeah, AJ is a guy that I followed now for a while, and I know he's a pretty tough character. He doesn't. He has some very strong competitive juices. Let's just put it that way. But I really, really admire and appreciate his analytical skills,
Right.
because they are extremely detailed. Now, the kind of detail that he does is something that I've seen other people do, but without the level of rigor that he applies.
Right.
He applies absolute rigor. He doesn't do what his biases tell him to do. He just puts the numbers in. So he, for some time he's been calling on his subscribers to look at shorting Lucid
Mm-hmm.
and shorting Stellantis.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I've been tracking that with the thought that I'm not I'm not a crazy short. I'm not crazy about doing short.
Right.
I've done it in the past when I've had very high conviction about a serious situation in a company in the marketplace. And I've been following him, and I am now convinced that his analysis is correct. So I'm putting a little bit of money into a short on Lucid, a little bit of money in a short on Stellantis. Now it's a little late in the game, but I feel pretty good about them. And the market is unforgiving right now. I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of bad news to come for Lucid, and there's a lot of bad news to come for Stellantis.
He,
So we'll see. I
yeah,
mean,
he put out the new numbers today, and Stellantis is just their numbers are down another 9%. I mean, they were already so low and they were down another 9%. It was just,
well, the point that he makes in his analysis is that the numbers aren't as the numbers are not as bad as their numbers do not represent just how
how
bad the
bad it
situation
is.
is.
Okay.
Because right now, they're saying they're getting the inventory in line, but they're not talking about that the dealer's inventory is like.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So I don't know. I think we're a ways away from the final story. I expect Stellantis to declare bankruptcy and to be helped out by some or other or multiple
Okay.
different nation states. And the shareholder always gets the short end of the stick there.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and I'm born and raised a Chrysler man, and my family was all about Dodges and Plymouths and such, even Jeep, and so and I haven't owned a Dodge or a Plymouth for I don't know 35 years now, but what you grow up with, you still have a little heart for,
Yeah.
and so it's really sad for me to see this company go away. Apparently go away. I thought the worst mistake they ever made, of course, was discontinuing the Challenger, which was my first new car that I ever bought was a Challenger, a 1970, the first year of the Challenger. And what was that, about 6 years ago? 2014. I told my kids I was going to buy a new car, and it was between a Volvo and a Challenger. And so my one son, who's the comedian, he says, "Well, Dad, you should buy the Challenger. It was your first new car. This will be your last new car."
Thank you, son.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So, all right. On the subject of far more seriousness, Larry, is there a real threat of inflation due to tariffs?
Well, the theory is that tariffs should cause inflation. I think in this case, we're not going to see inflation. We're going to see such disruption in the marketplace because of the loss of Chinese goods. I mean, the 10% tariffs are not going to produce inflation. That I'm convinced of. I think that the 10% is going to be absorbed by, the whole supply chain. That, what we've done is simply close down the Chinese supply. That should introduce inflation if there were a way to replace those goods, but I don't think there's a way to replace those goods. So we're in uncharted territory.
Yeah, I guess my theory would be that there will be a some kind of a decision with regard to China and the United States doing business together. I don't know when it will happen, how it will happen, but I was kind of looking beyond that and separately, because as you point out, MIT has said that only about 20% of the cost of tariffs gets passed on to the consumer. But I did a little analysis anyway, Larry, just in case I'm completely wrong. You know that the imports are 14% of GDP.
Yeah.
If you had a 15% average tariff, that would create a price increase of only 2.1% if 100% of it got passed on. If MIT is right, you're talking about 0.4%.
Yeah,
So
well, I mean, the tariffs, the imports into this country are in the order of, what is it? I'm trying to remember. I had those numbers just a few minutes ago. I was looking at them. Let me look at my Grok history. I think the annual imports were in the order of about 1.6 trillion,
yeah,
1.3
sounds
trillion
right. Yeah.
US imports. And, 10% of that is 130 million, 130 billion.
Yep.
And that's a very small percentage of the GDP.
Right. I just told you what it was, Larry.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm agreeing.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't see well, it says the imports are 3 trillion actually.
Yeah, but it doesn't really matter what the gross number is. What matters is
Yeah,
the percentage of GDP is. And if you're only impacting a 14% of GDP, and if you only have a 15% average tariff on that 14%, you can do the math. It's 14 times 15. It's
yeah.
2.1. So I don't understand what all the crisis talk about inflation is what I don't understand. I understand the concerns about supply chain disruption. I understand that there could be small businesses that are, really impacted while they either try to find a workaround or can't find a workaround. Absolutely understand that. I've been there, done that. I can't tell you how many times in my years in business I was impacted by some kind of supply chain disruption, everything from the oil embargoes
Yeah.
to major recessions, as you also experienced.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to see what the outcomes are going to be of this because we don't yet even understand. We don't begin to understand how we're going to end this thing.
Right,
But the imports from China right now just stopped.
right.
Ships have stopped
Sure.
sailing,
Absolutely. Yes.
and it will be it will be an interesting experiment. I mean, Gary Black is calling for the blackest of results.
Right, right.
He says there's another smooth Holly.
That's right.
I I started by telling him he's wrong until Trump came out with his first attempt at this, which shocked me.
Right.
And I said, you know what? He was wrong, but he's going to be found right.
Oh, no.
Yeah, because I
You
mean,
didn't say that.
if Trump had done that first thing, I mean, world trade would have ground to a halt. So I don't know. I have to say that I don't I'm not as sanguine as you because I know when supply chains get disrupted, terrible things happen,
It's true.
unpredictable things happen,
True.
prices fluctuate wildly, and who knows what's going to happen with interest rates. I mean, they're trending up very, very rapidly and very alarmingly.
Right.
Who knows what the Federal Reserve is going to do? He looks like he's not really. Let's just say he and Trump are not on the same page.
One of the regional presidents, chairman, whatever they called them, was on CNBC this morning. They said that the Federal Reserve was prepared to help smooth the transition into this new type of world economy. And he
Well,
was
he certainly had his chance to talk up, and he hasn't.
yeah, he said he said specifically that there's nothing that the Federal Reserve can do to solve the problem of the increases in the debt. I'm sorry, in the Treasury interest rates, but that they would be able to smooth the transition. And I'm sure that's true.
Well, I'm not so sure because the chairman, you know, said, I think just the day before yesterday, that he doesn't plan to do anything. That's not a helpful statement in the circumstances.
Yeah, exactly. Well, but for instance, I guess the Treasury can buy or sell bonds, the Treasury bonds.
They're not, yeah, they could buy and sell Treasury bonds, but he, he may be actually out to torpedo Trump. I don't know. It's hard to tell.
Yeah,
It's not very helpful.
not very helpful. So coming back to the idea of Smoot-Hawley, we might have talked about this on Monday night, but I did ask Grok. I thought I understood Smoot-Hawley pretty well anyway, but I asked Grok, and Grok said that it's nothing. We don't have there. Absolutely nothing about the world economic system today is in any way similar.
You're right, and that's exactly what I said to Gary Black.
Yes.
Until we saw Trump's plan.
Right. Well,
the point about Smoot-Hawley, the relationship between the current state and Smoot-Hawley, is not that we're in the same state and not that we're doing the same things. It is the disruption of the trade. That disruption of the trade is what is in parallel. I mean, we have a situation where a very large percentage of global trade has come to a dead halt.
Well, about 2%.
I don't believe that number is correct. When you say about 2% of world trade, no, not true at all.
Well, 2% of imports.
That's not world trade. I'm telling you.
I'm talking about Chinese imports to the United States.
No, it's not just about Chinese imports to the United States.
Okay.
It's about the Chinese, it's about our supply chain, which will affect a huge amount of our manufacturing and our exports, which your Grok reply didn't take into account. It's going to put factories out of business in China. They're closing down factories, even as we speak right now. They're closing down factories. They're letting people go. And it's going to disrupt those factories which export to other countries and which import from other countries. I don't think you understand the chain of reaction. And that was what we have in common with Smoot-Hawley, that we've created a chain of uncontrollable reactions. It is not, oh, it's 50 here and 100 there, and then it's minus 50 and therefore it balances out this way. That's not what happens. There is real pain on the ground. Freighters from China stop sailing. They don't only contain goods for the United States. Freighters from China stop sailing outbound, therefore they stop sailing inbound. And they stop sailing to other countries because the freighters that go to the United States stop along the way in other countries. So you just have this absolute chain reaction across supply chains. And that is the problem, that you can't look at some and say, oh, it's only 2% of world trade. It's not. It's probably closer to 20% of world trade. And that can lead to a house of, it could be like a domino effect.
Okay, but if we compare, let's say, to COVID, which created a massive disruption worldwide of many of the kinds that you're talking about.
Yeah.
But COVID was, in fact, worldwide.
Yes.
Was where companies were not producing anything worldwide. But now you're talking about only those companies that are reliant upon some part or whatever, from China, in the United States.
Almost every country. It's almost every company in Europe and in the United States. Because it's only, let's say you're right, it's only 2% of trade, but every factory has got 2% of its supply chain gone. That means almost 20% or 40% or 60% or 100% of its products can't be made.
Yeah.
I think you're trivializing what is.
I'm not trying to trivialize. I'm not trying to trivialize, but I also don't want to make it bigger than it is, because yes, when I had my factory, I bought some things from China and I made some things in the United States. I would no longer have been able to bring in Snoopy bells. Okay. Snoopy bicycle bells. But it wouldn't have interfered with my water bottles or my tire liners at all, which was 90% of my trade.
But that was then. This is now. The dependency on China components is so much higher today than it was then. Look, we'll see who is right. But all I can say is this is a very dangerous moment.
Okay. All right. Okay. I want to move on then. Okay. CPI and PPI on the good
Okay.
news side came in extremely good.
Yeah.
I made the claim, Larry, a couple days ago on X. I said that maybe the inflation that would come about as a result of the tariffs would be a good thing because back in the first Trump administration, the Fed was trying to get up to 2%.
You're like the kid with that pot of manure again. You are looking for that,
But if
for
we
that
get,
pony,
but if
man.
we get
Oh my
under
God.
1%, if we get under 2%,
There's a pony there.
something.
Randy will always find the pony. Well, at least he'll always look for the pony.
Look for
Good for you, Randy. Good for you. Big smile on your face. Listen, we'll see. Time will tell. I mean, I hope I'm deadly wrong.
So the CPI and PPI, though, those were really good numbers 2 months in a row.
Yeah.
They would have been absolutely go to our headlines on the New York Times if this had been during the Biden administration.
If this were the Trump administration, where Trump didn't roll out this terrible tariff policy, we would be in Goldilocks country. We would be in such great shape.
Now, by the way, I don't want people to get misunderstand you. You are in favor of the tariffs, right? Just with the right numbers?
I'm in favor of settling, revising tariffs globally so that the United States is treated like the rest of the world. I'm very much in favor of that, and I think that was on the table. I think that what we've done conflates multiple things. It conflates, Trump wanting to punish China, China wanting to assert itself in the world, Trump having this idea of replacing income tax with tariffs, the Navarros and his tribe wanting to punish the whole world because we should be richer than we are. I mean, just a whole lot of things going on. And yet, if you look at how Trump came out of the gate in policy, in every aspect of his policy, we were in such great shape. And I think this was unnecessary. This was an own goal. This was a bad thing. Now, hopefully, they will retreat. Bessent will take over. He'll be, and Elon will have some input into this, I hope. So, I mean, Elon's on my side in this one.
Oh yeah, he is. He's 100%. Oh, listen, by the way, I'm not saying that I'm 100% in agreement with.
You're just looking for the pony.
I'm just looking for the pony. I don't necessarily think that Trump did it the right way.
Yeah.
But I do think he did it the Trump way.
Yeah, maybe. But he was doing so great. I mean, so great. Things were going so well. Anyway, hopefully they'll still go well. And he's only got 16 months left to the midterms.
Yeah. This is the troubling part.
That's why this, anyway, it is what it is. We are where we are. We're moving forward.
So in the meantime, the folks believe that the Republicans now are the party, or at least equal to the Democrats in terms of being who's looking out for the folks.
Oh yeah, I think so. I think there's a lot of realignment, and hopefully it will stick. Hopefully the midterms will look. The vote in in which state was it? We lost
Wisconsin,
the judicial Wisconsin.
Yeah.
In Wisconsin, the vote in Wisconsin didn't look good.
No. No, that was rough, but I think it was came in way too late. They'd already spent $6 million or something on that lady. And Musk came in like
Can't make these
last
errors. Can't make these
days.
errors. Got to pay attention. Got to pay
Yep,
attention.
got to pay attention is right. Okay, well, Larry, it's that time again. We need to look and find out what happened with the numbers. Were you expecting it to settle down as much today as it did?
No, I wasn't actually. I was thinking we would slide back a little bit.
Okay, all right. Well, yeah. So we really had a good day of reduction in the amount of volatility. Tesla ended up if you well, in the after hours down a little bit now. So, but down only
10
4 tenths.
cents. It's down 10 cents. Come
Yeah.
on.
So it's
No,
really
no, it's not true. It's not true. It's down 41 cents. Sorry.
40. Yeah. So basically flat for the day, a little bit down. After all the volatility of the week, Friday turned out.
Bitcoin's up $4,000.
I'm sorry.
Bitcoin is up $4,000.
$4,000. Wow. What
Yeah.
happened? What happened to Tesla and Bitcoin going in lockstep? That didn't happen today.
Yeah, yeah. Nvidia had a good day.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm still long Nvidia on those options.
Yeah. Yeah.
I lightened my options a little bit so that I took my money off the table, so I've got only half the scope that I had, but I did well with that little half.
I
Yeah.
would say if you took it off when I think you took it off, you probably did really well.
Yeah, I took it off on the day after, so I did really well.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you would trim.
Yeah, I did. I mean, that's my style. If I go short, as soon as I cover my investment, I try and yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have this kind of guts or glory kind of attitude.
So the bonds were up 10.5% to 4.497.
Wow.
Okay, now Larry,
That's not good.
yeah. No, okay, now hear me out. Okay. One last thing.
Yeah.
I was just listening. It was Bill Atkinson. No, what's his name? Come on, help me out. Bill, the hedge fund guy.
Oh, yeah. You're asking me a name.
Yeah, you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Atkinson? No, it's not right.
Something like that. Yeah.
Uh,
I should know, right?
yes, and I should too.
Yeah. I'll look it up for you.
Okay. Anyway, he just came out a little bit ago, and he said if China is trying to sell off bonds,
Bill Ackman.
Ackman. If China is trying to sell off bonds in order to somehow mess things up,
Yeah. I heard that. I heard that this morning as well. Yeah.
he said they have no chance.
Yeah.
This
No,
would
I mean
never
they only have about $700 billion of bonds left.
right. Yes.
Japan has got many more bonds than China.
Right.
They have like 1.3 trillion.
Yeah.
China's down to like 700, and
It's right. Mhm.
so I mean they don't have a standing.
Right. Right. So that seems to be, based on those numbers, it would seem that that's off the table. So one of the other calls people were saying is that the hedge funds might have had to cover some of the things that they were wrong on on Monday and Tuesday.
Oh, you think? Geez, the hedge funds they've been under margin calls almost all week.
Right. And
Yeah,
then
no question.
And then Bradford Ferguson said there would be other individuals like Bradford who were selling their bonds and buying equities because there was a once in a lifetime opportunity at on a.
It's a great play. It's a great play. Yeah.
So anyway, I think this bond thing is also overplayed in my opinion because I am Pollyannic. I think that I'm shocked that it's gotten to 4.5. I'm sorry, 4.45. But I have a sneaky suspicion that we're really close to the top on this one.
Well, you could be wrong.
Of course I could be.
I think there's a pretty high probability that we'll see more problems in the bonds before this is over. I mean, until we have a clear path, a much clearer path, I don't think the bonds are going to go down in return. I think they're going to go up, and I think bonds are, we'll see.
All right. Okay. All right. But you agree with what the potential ways that it's probably taken place, and that China's not in a position to do us damage by.
I don't think China, I mean, look, they may have to liquidate some of their reserves. They may have to. So they may end up having to sell bonds. But I don't think the amount of bonds are that critical. Look, there's a buying pressure on bonds right now from these US dollar coins, these because every time they issue these, what are these US dollar coins called? These pardon? No, the coins that like the stable coins.
Oh, the stable coins. Okay.
Every time they issue a stable coin, they have to buy a bond.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And so there is kind of an offset to any work China wants to do to liquidate bonds. Japan liquidating bonds earlier this year really caused a problem.
Yeah, yeah.
So we have as much problem with Japan as we do have with China.
And the dollar, the last question of the day. I'm not remotely expert on the dollar, even though I've been in a position as an import exporter to have to deal with dollar valuation problems. I've never really paid any attention to the trade, but the dollar is down off of its highs, but the highs were very high. So even though we're down, it's not like horrible. By the way, the 4.45 isn't crazy either on the bonds. That's not a crazy number. We were there in January.
Yeah, but we were supposed to go down.
I know. I'm 100% with you on that one. So any thoughts on the dollar? It seems to me that the dollar, the gold, and the bonds are just related,
I'm not buying dollars right now.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not buying bonds right now, and I'm not buying dollars right now. I think there's a lot of pressure to come, a lot more pressure to come.
All right. Well, Larry, I always ask you at the end. Oops. Huh? What?
Yeah, I will say the alternatives are not that great. I mean, what are you going to do? Buy renminbi? I mean, are you going to buy, I don't, you're not going to buy euro, for example.
No.
So,
yeah,
that's the problem the world faces.
All right. Well, that could be your final word of wisdom then, I suppose.
Maybe that's the reason, anyway.
So, Larry, we started off with shower heads. I'm going to end by encouraging people to join me at 7:45, where Brian Wang will close out the day, among other things, talking about the technicals of the wild and crazy market this week and what that might mean for next week.
Right. Well, give him my best.
I will, and you have a great weekend. And to all of you out there, it has been great, and it's been great talking to you.
Take care.